Welcome to the SPL Rundown. I'm your host, APAM, here with three wonderful guests. We have Biggy, the coach of the Camelot Kings. We have former SPL coach Cardiac as well, and former SPL player here, Cherryo, as well, to break down all of Phase 3 Week 2 action. Stick around a little bit later for my interview with Ronngyu, the support for the Atlantis Leviathans. But first, we had a pretty interesting SPL week, I think. Starting with, because Biggy is here, you probably get the inside scoop on the Kings a little bit, and the Kings versus the Scarabs. Are you happy to see Twig looking good? Now that Assassins are sort of back in the jungle meta, and Twig looked really good back on the Assassins. I think he went 8-0 on a Hoombots or something similar to that.
I think he had a mixed weekend. I think he played well the first game. I think he had a rough game 2 and 3 from what I remember. But I mean, he said to us, and we kind of agree that these next kind of few weeks, where the first round robin is just, it doesn't matter for nothing matters. I think if you get top 2, you can choose the group, but I don't think that really matters. We're just kind of playing for the sake of it, and I think he's just got to adjust. And so we're not really worried. He's just picking random things, seeing what he likes. So.
Yeah, I mean, in the second set you guys played this week, he did pick some weird stuff. I guess even Tsukiyomi is kind of unusual for Twig, at least so far this season, things like that. Any opinions from sort of the new jungle meta from you, Cherry or Cardiac, and the Kings, how the Kings look this first set?
It's definitely a lot of fun to have the jungle meta change again, because it was kind of boring the last one with all the tanky junglers, and the time to kill was for junglers was it's kind of hard to kill the mid laners.
Yeah,
they're getting away with murder and shit with the Ram Shroud and the Soul Gems. That meta wasn't really that fun. I think I will say junglers are probably a bit OP right now. Hyrax definitely went a bit too far with the buffs. They went all in, which I respect, but I think we buffed 6-7 items. I don't know how many. Every core item on junglers got buffed.
Yeah.
So we'll probably have to do a little bit to revert that. But I mean, it's a good change in general to kind of buff junglers a little bit and have a bit more assassins being actually good right now. So.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I noticed with that is Morrigan's kind of getting prioed a little bit more now, and I think it's just whenever Morrigan can turn into a full damage assassin, it just makes her that much better. Also, game 1 and game 2, it was they were kind of stompy both ways, it seems like. So,
right.
What kind of happened in game 2 where you guys lost it a little bit?
I think Roy just fed. I think he messed up on he got Sylvanas pulled and he didn't beat when he got rooted trying to TP, and then he died, and then he died to a gank again, and then they just had they had a really good comp from ahead. I feel like they had a lot of sustain, they had a lot of damage, they had Raj and Ul, and we kind of just rolled over. I think Sam also kind of trolled not buying Ank for some reason. He went Blink Capri, so but that's the thing with him. You never know what to expect.
You mentioned the Uller. I wanted to bring up, this is sort of a pick I expected Stu to sort of pop off on, especially with the changes to the Mace Tree and things like that. You think this is something the Scarabs can maybe lean on a little bit? Stu went 5-0 in game 2, and I think, like you said, there was some deaths in the duo lane, and they really capitalized on that. Sorry to cut you off there, Cardiac.
I think everyone's going to be leaning on Uller for a little bit.
Yeah.
He seemed, at least for this week, I mean, maybe it's a thing where he hasn't been picked very much this year, and you got to kind of get used to him again in a way where you can punish him correctly. But he seemed to really run a lot of the duo lanes this week.
Yeah, I think he's obviously people are just playing him because of the changes to Jotuns and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But I feel also it'll just cause a meta shift. People will start playing other more aggressive hunters rather than just we've been practicing Hachiman and stuff, and now they're playing Ul, so we can't play that anymore. So I think here a lot of teams will rely on it, but I feel it won't break the game in the same way kind of junglers are at the moment. I think people will just start playing different early game hunters into it.
Yeah, it does sort of seem like, they're only going into this build, this Mace build with the Uller, and I mean, I guess sort of their hunters are sprinkling in some of these other recently buffed items like Transcendence and stuff into other builds, but it kind of seems like the other builds still have some viability. So I don't know. We know Netroid was sort of like favoring Rom a lot, and it doesn't really feel like Rom is actually going to leave the meta too much, right? Or those sorts of gods, right, that are reliant more on like attack speed rather than just power.
I think it will come down to like, I feel like this always happens every year. People start playing Ul or I don't know, like Cupid for example, and people just pick based on pressure. Like it all just becomes like a pressure, can we fight early kind of battle.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's gonna be the same thing. It's like if you can play like Rom, Sylvanas or something, and they're like Ul, Geb, then it's like okay, yeah, we can play Rom here, it's fine. I think it's just gonna be like a kind of like a tango in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Were you happy that Game 3 was at least a bit of a quick win from you guys? You know, or Game 3 was the one that was back and forth. I'm sorry about that. But you guys did have an early deicide that sort of led to a good win there early on, especially after your playoff showing. Are you sort of happy with how the team is looking, or are these sort of still games that you're learning from?
I mean, I would say like our foot is definitely off the gas. I think after playoffs, I think it kind of hit us now that we're just like so over having two people in the EU.
Mm-hmm.
We're like we're just like so mentally over it that at the moment we're kind of just playing a bit randomly, not playing as well, probably not playing as like trying as hard as we can. I think game 3 we absolutely entered, and then somehow I don't even know how we won that fight at Gold Fury. We literally were like all poked from gold and dying, and then I think Harry maybe or someone made a play. I forget. Maybe it was Sam. I think Sam got like a big ult or something, and we just turned the fight. And then once we're ahead against a team like that, I feel like we shouldn't throw, but they definitely probably messed up that
Yeah.
Gold Fury fight.
Yeah, maybe showing a little bit of the Solar Scarab's inexperience still there.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts from you, Cardiac or Cherry, about the set here between the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs?
I think in game 3, like pretty sure like Scarabs could have won if they had like I think the core from from Kings was too good. Like pretty sure they lost to like the 3v3 core, and then they picked one Scarabs had the next game. I don't remember the exact gods, but I know there was like a Tsukuyomi. Oh yeah, it was Tsukuyomi, Raijin, Sylvanas, and then the next game Kings picked the same exact 3. And I think when you have like a complex 10 team fight, you just do have so much damage, and the Circuit was like really fed, but it was basically useless. Like I don't think you can really play Circuit in a meta like this. Like Scream was like pretty fed, but then he goes to this fight, and pretty sure you guys just like one shot him and then so on the fight. So I think it's like the draft from Kings was really good and kind of
Yeah, I mean, after,
that last game.
yeah, after game 2, I said we just have to break up their comp and kind of flip it on them, and it will be a lot easier. I also felt like Boronic on team at compared to Raijin, like I think
Yeah,
Big Man had better games, all 3 games than him on like either side of the matchup, but it just felt different having him on team at as opposed to Raijin. And then yeah, we just kind of took their picks, and we knew that they would first pick Terror, and it didn't work. Like I think we should have won solo harder, but their plan was to just pick Arthur into Terror and just win the lane. But we just ended up, like Cherry said, having a stronger team comp anyway later in the game, and won off of that. So
I think Raijin is a god just kind of plays himself, so it's pretty hard to punish. So it's like whenever you take people off Raijin, I feel like they'll always look worse if they're not like playing as clean, I guess.
The Scarabs are continuing to show like a little bit of growth, but they kind of have to be winning sets like these if they want to be like a real contender coming up for playoffs and for Worlds, and they just always seem to fall a little bit short. But you never know.
Yeah, I think especially this coming off the playoff performance. I don't mean to throw any shade on you, Biggie, or anything, but I think a lot of teams were maybe looking forward, let's say, to playing you guys, maybe thinking they could take some games and sets off you guys based on what had happened in playoffs. And I'm glad to see that you guys sort of showed them who's boss a little bit. This one, I think everyone sort of expected the J Dragons versus the Bolts to be a little bit longer. It was a pretty quick, maybe not quick, but pretty convincing, I think, 2-game win here for the J Dragons over the Bolts. Again, Uller plays a big role in here. Panda Cat sort of popped off on the Uller in both games here. 8-1 in game 2. I think he went 5-2 in game 1. Is this Uller just dominating? And sort of we're back in the Sam meta, so I'll point out Sam's KDA here too. He went 6-2 in game 1 and 5-3 in game 2. Is this sort of the effect of the patch change and things like that? Just everything lining up for the J Dragons here.
I think that patch definitely helps them a lot. I think Sam on like Assassins is like, and between him and on Warriors is like night and day. Honestly, like it's not even close. I also honestly think the Warriors were kind of overrated, regardless. But like I think the Assassins just bring something completely different. I think a lot of teams will just get better. Like, I think most teams honestly get better. I don't think there's a lot of people that were that good at that Warrior playstyle. I'd say like Panatom, Lasper, would like the best at it, honestly. Like, and that's why I think they can show a lot of success. I mean, Twig is obviously good at it, but like the only problem with Twig is like he's really good at the playstyle, but he like just ends sometimes. Like sometimes he doesn't adjust to the game. So like I think with the Assassins being good, like Dragons definitely get better, and I think everyone else gets better at the same time though. But I think Dragons like let's say everyone went from like a 7 to a 9, Dragons maybe went to like a 10, like in with Sam's performance, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think classically Hunbots has probably been like his go-to comfort pick as well. So anytime Hunbots is kind of viable, it's definitely going to help for any team Sam's on. But I don't know. I feel like these two teams have been kind of back and forth all year. So I don't know if necessarily it was a meta change or not, or just draft differences. But yeah, I mean, Dragons got the better of them.
Yeah, I sort of expected the Bolts to maybe put up a bit more of a fight. I don't know. It seems like sometimes they, get down in these games, and it's kind of seems hard for them to come back. A lot of times, is that something that you feel, or is that is this just sort of a one-off maybe thing? Because the Bolts did look very strong in phase 2, so we're not too far removed from that.
I think they have comeback potential. I just think that, especially this game 1 draft from the Dragons was pretty nasty. Like, really good team fight. So, I don't know.
I honestly think they were just trying out stuff. I'm not saying like they don't want to win, but I think they just kind of had the wrong idea of the meta. Like, there's no way they're gonna draft like this again. I think the drafts were just not good. Like, I don't think Double Hunter works right now in this meta. I know, like, obviously Jotuns is like all the mace trees and the stuff, and Brumbus Spear is good, but I think mages are still like as good as they are, and again, like, set in a one-shot meta is also not gonna do well. Like I remember I saw him like literally get one shot in like a Susano combo, and it was like level 11 or 12. Like, it wasn't even like late game. Like, there's just too much damage right now to play a god like set. And I think they just had like the wrong idea of the meta. I think that's why the set didn't really look that good for Bolts, but I think they already looked better against Valks, like with their drafts and stuff.
I agree. They scrimmed us like the 2 days before they played, and they like kind of owned us, but they were playing like this exact stuff, and I think we're just a bad scrim team, especially at the moment. And from like the way their drafts went, I think they definitely misread the meta, and they also just took what they won on in scrims. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna win on these picks. Like, we've been owning Kings with them, and like I think especially in mid, I think like Raijin and Tiamat went through the whole draft, the first like maybe both games, and Ven played Sillin and Huyi, and to me like that just didn't make a lot of sense. Like, even though, but I mean, sometimes you just get baited like that. If you do really well in scrims, then you play what's good. I think also they misread maybe the Geb a bit, and obviously the Ul. So.
Yeah. What is making Geb so strong? Sorry to cut you off there, Cardiac.
No, you're fine.
His ult damage is like
just the ult
damage
damage.
Is stupid.
I don't know, it seemed like not too much of a damage increase, but just having that extra damage in addition to the 20% has pushed him over the top. Is that what it feels like?
Yeah, I think we scrimmed after the buff, and we were playing it, and I think Sam Blink ulted 2 rolled out and like half HP both carries, and we were like, this probably isn't supposed to happen, you know. Like, I don't think I got that good late. Like, I think Geb was fine, kind of the way he was. He is really, really good.
I think he was underpicked, honestly, but I think it's just like kind of hard to get him through the early game sometimes. People just rather not play him. Also, there's just no Geb mains, I would say. Like, no one is really like, man, I really want to play Geb this game, you know? It's kind of like, say, a little bit of a boring character. And that buff just makes him just do more damage to carries, which makes him, like, just kind of better. If you get a blink ult on carries late game, you probably just insta-win the fight, so...
Yeah, I think it was just kind of a random buff. Like, it made no sense to me. Like, what they would, like, were they trying to get people to play him in solo, or were they just trying to get him to do a lot more damage so that people took the risk reward of picking him more in SPL? I don't know.
We'll never know.
Cardiac, I don't want to miss that thought that you had.
I think I was. Oh yeah, it was about the Bolts draft and the double hunter thing. Like, they even just like in the top 3, they just picked Chiron and Hoyi. I mean, unless they weren't trying to hide it anything at all, like they were just gonna stick to what they were gonna draft anyways. It's just kind of strange that they just go straight for the Hoyi, like kind of telling Dragons like we're just double hunter this game.
Yeah, it is pretty early to pick that strat, sort of give up the strat there, right?
Well, Dragons also knew game 1, which was like interesting to me. Maybe they'd scrimmed other teams that were doing it, but Bolts were the only team that did that all week. And then they first picked Chiron, and
True, yeah.
and they banned Scotty Hughes. So it's like Dragons either had like a Gigabrain read, or maybe
I would say, like, I'm not sure. Like, this is speculation. I don't know if Vince played it in rank, but Vin usually just plays what he wants to play in rank.
He's probably
and streams, so it might have just been there, like, and like he plays a lot of Rui in general, like throughout his career, so it might have been that.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought the Chiron prioritizing over the Ul specifically was really strange, especially if they wanted to play Hunter mid, and then why not just play Ul, you know? And then also the Geb, I feel like, was kind of undervalued by Bolts.
I think even the Kuzenbo really just doesn't feel like a Haddix type of god. I don't know, that's just sort of a feeling thing on my part, but there any credence to Kuzenbo in the solo lane at all? Or I don't know. I think we've seen Neil play it pretty effectively in support, but I don't know how good it's been in solo this season.
It's good against certain junglers. I don't think he's like OP. I don't think he's terrible. I think he's fine if he can get through the lane, and he's really good against like specific junglers. And if you can have a good game where you're always finding the jungler, then the jungler's not going to play the game right. So I don't think it's like a terrible pick. Maybe they prioritized it a bit highly, but they had a game plan and it just didn't work.
Any final thoughts here about the Jade Dragons versus the Olympus Bolts?
No, I think in general, I'm convinced that Double Hunter is just almost never good, honestly. Like, I feel like the more Smite evolves, the more Double Hunters becomes worse and worse.
Do you think they were trying something with like the Bumbas?
Yeah, they were trying to like one-shot objective, like Bumba Spear, like one-shot objectives, and like the mages are just still too good. Like, I think everyone's always complaining how OP mages are. Just because the jungler items got better, Bumba Spear got better, doesn't mean mages got any worse. You know, they're still the exact same. So.
All right, let's move on to the next set of the week. The Oni Warriors versus the Solar Scarabs. Bit of a surprise, I think, for me after seeing how the Scarabs played against the Kings, but the Oni Warriors were able to 2-0 them. I think Game 1 and Game 2 were some pretty convincing wins by the Oni Warriors. I just have to say, I think Neil finally being in Atlanta has probably helped them out quite a bit, even though there are still 2 people sort of in the EU with Dardas and Kuvo stuck there. The Onis just looked much better, and I think even Nika popped off. He picked Ama solo, which we haven't seen, I don't know, maybe in a year, almost to the date maybe, of was able to solo control. So, a pretty good win here from the Oni Warriors. Are you guys feeling sort of the Oni homies here?
For me, it was like all about the Scarabs this set, right? They kind of fumbled against Titans the week before. They fumbled game 3 against us. So they were kind of like, I think they had a lot of confidence. Like they were like saying on Twitter, "Oh, we threw and stuff." But I feel like also when you throw like that, it is mentally hard to bounce back from. So for me, this set was like, okay, if Scarabs are genuinely getting better, they've got to beat Warriors today. Like, it doesn't matter how they do it, but they just got to beat Warriors. And then they kind of got owned. So for me, it was like, oh, like you see this a lot in Smite where a bottom team kind of starts improving and they take a set and then you're like, and everyone's like hyping them up. Oh, they're getting so much better. And then they just drop again. Like, so for me, it would be it's kind of worrying for the Scarabs that they're just probably going to be like the 7th place team again now. But on top of that, I think Neil being here will definitely motivate Vote and Nika a lot specifically, living with him and just feeling like some like breaking out of the rut a little bit.
Sure.
But I think it's good signs for them for sure.
Gary, you had a thought as well?
I mean, I think that team is like always going to be really good. I think they just like they just need to really want to try and win. Like, I mean, obviously they still always want to win, but you know, with the situation they're in and stuff, it's kind of easy to like start kind of losing a little bit of hope or like not trying as hard.
Yeah.
I think with Neil there, they'll like change a lot. It's like signs of what to come, right? They're like, oh, Neil's here, and hopefully Dart is the threat soon. I think they're just like playing better. Like they're just playing. They're probably just having more fun playing the game, I would assume, honestly. So they'll just play better. If Dart is just like still think one of like the best players ever, honestly. If he just like really wants to, if he try hard, like he plays so much better. But I don't think he's tried hard. Like really tried this whole year. So like if he keeps on this performance, maybe I think the Warriors will look a lot better.
Yeah. Cardiac, any thoughts from you about this set?
I mean, we've seen like if the Warriors can get on a little run, like they are like a pretty dangerous team to anyone. I don't know if I fully back them yet, but I mean, they did look pretty convincing in this set. And like Biggie said, it kind of shows that the Scarabs are kind of just slipping into that 7th seed once again, even though they may, you know, the gap between 7th and 8th is pretty big, but you know, there's got to be a 7th place team. So
Yeah.
but I mean, it's a good sign for the Warriors. It's just, can they continue it, and yeah, can Neil keep bringing positive impacts to the team?
My problem with Scarabs is just like I don't really feel like they have any win conditions. And like I just feel like whenever they're playing, like if Scream isn't super fed and they like get early FGs or something, like it doesn't really feel like that convincing when they win. Every time they won, I feel like they really outdrafted someone, or the other team really fucked up in the early game. Like I want to see them like win when they're losing. You know, like I want to see them like be 3 kills down in the early game and still like kind of do a good performance. But I feel like they just they don't really have that. And I don't think if you don't have that, you're never going to be a top team. Like if you can't win some games from behind, like you're not really a top team. Like,
yeah, that's true. Like a lot of the performances, they kind of are like stomping the early game, and then it just obviously makes the game a little bit easier. And I think the times they've done well was like when Scream and Solo have kind of like ran that side of the map, but they've kind of sacked dual lane a little bit. So I don't know if that's just like an intentional play style or what, but yeah.
I do think their like win condition is Scream getting super fed and probably getting Solo or Troll ahead as well. That's what it felt like game 2. I felt like Inbound did a good job to get Scream ahead, and then Scream ran the whole game. On I think I already played Tsukiyomi, I think, and he ran the game, and I was like, well, especially in this meta, then that's good. That's like how you want to play, right? But I do feel like maybe that is extremely inexperienced in comparison to a lot of, like, if you look at a lot of the other backlines in the SPL, you're like, wow, and then you're like, oh, Stuart and Bronick, they just haven't had enough time, like, in the SPL, and they haven't had enough time together, and you need time together as a backline to also like learn how to play together and also play with your support a lot of the time. So I think it's just a lot. They have a tougher road than a lot of other people, a lot of other teams in that department, like Jerry said.
Yeah. Did want to hone in on the Amaterasu pick here that Nika made. Is this just like a Nika only god, or do you expect maybe some warriors to come back in to the solo lane off of seeing Nika's performance on this pick?
I think he's just against Terror, right? You can kind of play what you want.
Mm.
Terror kind of enables you to play warriors, and he was probably just, I don't know, semi-trolling.
Yeah, I think Nika, like, oh, he saw Terra and he wanted to
Yeah.
play. I don't think there was. I don't even think it was like good of an Amy game. It was like just fine.
Mm.
Like, I'm sure if you ask Nika, there's definitely better picks this game, but he was just like, I could get away with Amy this game, so I'll play her.
Yeah. The next set of the week, and this sort of was my set of the week, I think, the Atlantis Leviathans versus the Jade Dragons really was a back and forth set. Games 1 and 2 were almost the same game, just for different teams, right? Game 1, the Dragons cut out to a pretty early lead and lose a fight at Gold Fury, and the Levi's sort of take it away from them. Game 2, sort of reverse. Levi's have an early lead and lose a fight at Gold Fury, and the Jade Dragons win. And then Game 3, it was sort of the Panatom and Zuler show. They both sort of pop off there. This is probably one of the best wins for the Leviathans. Leviathans, I think, were 3-0 after this week. They didn't play any other games. Now sitting at the top of the standings. This is sort of something we've seen from old Leviathans as well. I think even in Phase 1 they were near the top of the league, but are they sort of being pushed over the edge here as we get into Phase 3 and look forward to Worlds?
I think Leviathans will just be a top team, honestly. Like, for the rest of the season, like, I just think they have like everything that makes my team good. Like, they're not the best at everything, but like they just have like a solid backline, a front line that knows how to play together, and a jungler that's like it's not like AFK, and it's not like just inting. He kind of just knows what he's doing. So they don't really have a lot of weaknesses. I mean, their only weakness I would say was always their drafting.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it really doesn't matter. There's too many gods to ban. Like it doesn't matter if every game you play against Tiamat or Raijin on Shinto or Merlin. Like, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with like all their players. Like, I think Ronngyu played Terra every game, pretty sure. But like, I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna ban the Terra?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't think that at this point, like right now, when there's so many good characters, I don't think it really matters that their weakness is drafting or whatever. So I think they'll always be good. Like, I think they can always, like, they can go on to win Worlds, and they could just lose 3-0 to a team. Like, they're just depends on the day. I feel like how they play. Especially, I think Panatom is like probably their most important player. Obviously, Shinto's always going to play good. That's the thing. Like, so like I think it's just up to Panatom, like how he plays the early mid game. Because sometimes when he falls behind, like the team just does look a bit flat, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, I think in terms of the regular season that they're the team to beat. But it comes down to tournament time, and I don't think they haven't won a tournament, right? Sanguine or Leviathans. Yeah, so I mean they've been a pretty dominant team the past 2 years, but haven't won a tournament. So I think for the regular season, yeah, they're definitely the team to beat. They just have to prove it on land.
Yeah, they definitely remind me a lot of old Dignitas, where like we were dominant a lot during the regular season, and then I think we lost a lot of finals at big lands, and we won like one land, I think like Valencia or something.
Right.
But I think they'll only get better. I think Zap is really good for that team. I think.
Yeah, he is.
I don't think the language barrier like will matter that much, and I think the more they listen to Zap, the better they'll get as players and as a team. And yeah, I think they put in a lot of effort, and they grind the game. And so I think, like Cherry said, they'll always just be a top team, kind of as long as they're in the SPL, in my opinion.
I really do think it's nerves, by the way. Like, when it comes to important games, like I think they all just play, like, maybe not all of them, but I think the team just plays worse at land. Like, so I mean, it's probably the more tournaments they play, the better they'll get adjusted to it. Because even like when I played, like, I've been playing for a while, and it's still like. Playing at Worlds is still always like there's always some nerves at the beginning, and if they can just win like the first set, I think they'll look a lot better. But I don't think they've won a first set in a tournament yet. Like, maybe they have it, I don't remember, but I don't think they have.
They won. I think this past one was the first one.
Yeah.
I forget who they beat. Bolts, maybe.
They might have beat the Oni Warriors and then the Bolts, right?
Might have been Warriors, yeah. I think it was Warriors.
I think they beat the Warriors, and then they beat the Bolts, and then they got to the finals and lost in the playoff final.
Yeah, I mean they were definitely the favorites to win that tournament.
Yeah,
like going into the finals. But
They
Do you think
definitely look better
what-
with Zap. Like I think usually like they always lost just like at the tournaments, but with Zap they actually did pick to the finals. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Maybe
I agree with what
something,
Cherryo said. Sorry to cut you off. I think like right now they're going to be really good because, like you said, there's so many things to ban. Like I remember before we played week 1 this split, I was just sitting there thinking like this game is just not fun. There's like 12 things I want to ban. Like I do not enjoy coaching SPL right now. Like there is just so many OP gods and like there's like 3 or 4 in probably like every role besides maybe ADC
Mm-hmm.
that you just want to ban.
I mean, I think this is going to be a matchup that you might even see at Worlds Finals.
Mm-hmm.
I think both these teams are super strong, but I think it really comes down to tournament time and kind of what you was saying earlier is maybe there are some teams out there that aren't at 100% right now that have taken their foot off the gas a little bit and are kind of waiting till they get to playoffs and then going to turn up. So although they look good right now and they're winning games in the regular season, I kind of want them to prove it at Worlds.
Are you?
But I think Zap definitely helps this team
Sure.
a lot.
Are you worried at all that about maybe having losses in this phase, given that it's sort of the most important phase? We sort of talked about all year how because of COVID and things like that, this is the phase that really matters. Is it okay to give up some games or sets early on, or do you think this could potentially come back closer to group stages or the end of this phase to hurt the Dragons at all?
I think it really doesn't matter at all, honestly. I
Especially
think
in
no
round
team.
robin.
I think no team should ever lose and be like. I mean, you should obviously like care that you lost, but I really think it's like as long as you learning something from the game, just like a huge win. Like I'd rather like lose, like really rather like lose the game and like learn something that like win, but kind of just win because the other team played bad. Because then you just don't really learn anything.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's also one thing to be winning a lot now when this jungle patch where all these junglers are OP, like that's not gonna last.
Right.
Like there's just, I mean, you never know with Hyris, but like there's just no way that this should last another patch where these just assassins are literally just one-shotting everything. So it's kind of like a weird like Cherry said, like you should always try to win, but it's like how much do these wins matter if the game is just so. I think the game's just really bloated right now in a lot of areas. Like a lot of the
There's just
picks.
too much damage. Yeah.
Let's move on to the next set of the week. The Olympus Bolts 2-0'd the Valhalla Valkyries here. We've been talking about the Valks looking good in early games. It seems like they've got the early game kind of down pat at this point, but basically everything after, maybe like the first 10 minutes of the game seems to still be a struggle for the Valks here. Obviously, we would be asking lots of questions if the Bolts, ended up losing this, but it seemed sort of just like another day in the office for them. I don't know. Is there any insightful analysis that you guys have about this set?
There is one thing with Valves that confused me. They always look pretty competitive game one. What I mean by that is like they have a decent 15 minutes and they get one fight and lose whatever, like
Right.
normal smite game. But then there's always game two where they actually just end like.
Yeah.
And I mean like they've actually had, if you go to any of the games this season, like they've actually had really good game ones. Like always one game of the two they lose is like pretty close. They like actually have a decent fighting chance. And then the other game is like it's like 0-10 like in like 15 minutes or like so someone's like 0-6 or like 1-5 like all the time. I don't know what happens. Probably just like I mean you kind of get it right. You go into game one, you're like kind of motivated a little bit. You're like let's win guys, let's do our best, and you do your best and someone fucks up or someone throws and they lose. And just game two, they just lose focus. Like it's so obvious the way they play. Like it's not like giving up, but there's just no focus, like no awareness. You could gank them like anywhere and they'll die. There's like no one surviving in a gank and stuff. So it's kind of sucks for them because they don't really get to learn anything from all the game twos they play. They really just learn from game one, and then game twos are like kind of useless, really. So if they can work on that, they can. I mean, they are. I would say they're slowly improving. Maybe it's like hard to tell. Like in the one game they actually play the game, they're slowly improving. I just think it doesn't seem like I feel like it's they rarely get to win games, right? So when they are in like a decent fighting chance, they just don't know which fights to take. Like they don't know how to like push a lead. Like they would have a lead and they would throw it. Like I remember they were so far ahead one of the games. I can't remember against who like last week.
Yeah, I think they were like
so
they were
far
like
ahead.
3K or
But against
4K
the Leviathans,
ahead.
they're like so far ahead invading your red buff. Like
Yeah.
such an unlosable fight. I remember like they had an Afro Horus and a really fed Erlang, and they like just fuck up like their engagement and just lose the fight. And that's because they how many times have they actually tried to invade a red buff? You know, like it's not. Obviously, it's like easy just invade running it out. Like, but this these stuff like the more they play the games, the like, better they'll be if they actually try to focus on like learning from these games. So like hopefully they stop kind of not gonna say trolling game twos, but kind of trolling really. Like at some point they usually start trolling.
Who do they scrim? Is it EU SEC team?
They scrim NA teams, but if they can't find any scrims, they scrim EU SEC teams.
Okay.
So it really depends on the NA team. Some NA teams don't want to scrim them because they think it's bad practice. Which is like, I mean, I can't blame the NA teams
Yeah.
that much. Like, I understand at the end of the day why they wouldn't want to scrim them.
I think it's just
But
an
yeah, they
uphill battle, right?
Yeah,
For them. I think they've definitely had some good early games, and for me, it is exciting to see that team hopefully eventually come here and see how good they are, because I think they obviously have a lot of individual skill. I think maybe I'd say that team probably lacks a leader for sure.
yeah.
Just knowing those players like individually, but I think also just the ping, like their motivation, especially after like you play so well game one and then you lose and it's like, oh, this again, like roll on 130 ping and like we've thrown game one like
I remember
yeah,
Emil
like,
dropped a kill. He's playing Hu Yi and like Jake lives with 1 HP and kills him, and you just know like Emil just started raging and like.
oh yeah, I remember that.
Like he's just like you drop a kill like that, you're supposed to kill this guy and go farm, and then you end up dying. Like it definitely annoys you. Small stuff like that adds up, you know. Like just kind of ends up being frustrating. And game two, honestly, I remember game two. Like Emil got triple bounced at like purple, like level 304, and he ended up dying, and then like game was just like it's just over from there. Like it was mental was gone. I think it was a bit unlucky.
I think like you said as well, being in winning positions. Like honestly, I don't want to scrim Valkyries. Like it gains us nothing. Like to scrim Valkyries, like they're just all playing on high ping a lot of time. I think the few times you scrim them, sometimes they get tilted and the games become pretty like extremely one-sided. So it's hard, like because it doesn't make sense for us to like top teams to scrim them on high ping, right? And so for them, they're kind of just at a huge disadvantage. Like trying to put themselves against good teams in winning positions in practice, and then to like practice that, so then have it translate to SPL. So,
and honestly, like I scrim UNCC teams, right? And it's not even close to like SPL. Like the playstyle, the picks, the way people play, it's completely different. So like, I know they do scrim UNCC teams when they can't find any SPL scrims, but it's like I would say, not gonna say it's bad practice because they can still learn, but it's like. It's completely different playstyle, and it's it could actually just end up being bad habits. Because I think against Johnny, and he's always just gonna go like 10-0, you know, like 9-0 in EU SEC scrims, and that's just not gonna happen in SPL. That doesn't really end up happening the same way. So, like obviously, kind of base them a little bit, but I mean, they don't really have much choice, right? You scrim at USC teams or just don't scrim at all, because like they'll scrim like Scarabs or they'll scrim like Leviathans maybe sometimes, but. Like Warriors, I think, but they're not end up like some teams just won't scrim them, like Kings, for example. I don't really know who else, but I assume like a couple, like 3-4 teams probably just don't want to scrim them. So.
Any thoughts about the Bolts here, or like I said, maybe business as usual for them?
I mean, it's hard to like kind of take anything for the Bolts here. I mean, like if they don't win this, then they have stuff to like look at. But as long as they win this, like good job, you know. Like it's not much like you can take from it, in my opinion.
Yeah, they should just be beating Valkyries comfortably. Like then there's not much else to say. I feel like.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts about this set?
Nope.
Bear brought Jingwei back. That's it. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much you can take from these, maybe besides like, even like the drafts maybe aren't even super realistic for the future for the Bolts, but yeah, it just kind of sucks going into Valkyrie sets when you kind of just you kind of expect it to be a 2-0, and
Right.
that's not really a fun viewing experience, but you know, they are at a pretty big disadvantage.
Sure.
And on top of that, their mentality is probably been shot for a while.
Mhm.
Do you know also all the Valks players got their visa approved, so maybe maybe they'll get their
That's
appointments soon. Yeah, I know they're working on like DS 160 and stuff.
Fingers
So
crossed. Fingers crossed.
yeah,
Valks
I think
to win
that would
world.
be big. I think regardless, like just getting there is going to be a big like morale boost.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's like a main thing for teams like morale is huge, and I'm sure like their comms and like their scrim atmosphere is probably not the best. Like I'm pretty sure of that. So if they can just get a change, then who knows what can happen. They can pick up a set here and there.
All right, it's time to finish up week 2 with the last set of the week here. The Camelot Kings versus the Tartarus Titans. I guess another congratulations in order for Biggie here. You guys 2-0 the Titans this past week. I think a lot of people were surprised by the Titans, expecting them to maybe put up a bit more of a fight. It did seem like you guys were able to, maybe bait them into some bad fights and take advantage of some positioning mistakes that the Titans made, and end up winning both the games here. Are you feeling happy with your guys' performance in this set at all, or think more to learn than what was good, Biggie?
I don't know. It was a weird set. Like if you look at it on paper, it's like, oh, we kind of owned them, but I don't feel it. It didn't feel that way watching. I think especially game 1. After the draft, I said, okay, we literally cannot die early, otherwise this game is over. Like, look at that draft. If we die early, and then I think Twig died like level 2 again, and I was just sitting there like, oh, like why? And I feel like that right now is our biggest weakness. We die so often in the early game. It's like it's actually like a meme at this point in our scrims, because like the same thing happens there. We just int every early game, and I'm sitting there like, okay, I don't know, like how am I supposed to coach this? Like, am I supposed to just tell you guys not to die? Like, what do I say to that? And so I think game 1 we were really far behind, and then we just won a gold fight. I think Sam or Harry like popped off in the fight. I mean, this set definitely our backline carried us for sure. I think Royd showed up.
And Big Man.
And Big
Yeah,
Man.
Big Man was
Man,
popping
yeah,
off like on Tiamat.
Both of them had really good games. I think they both played Izanami Tiamat both games.
Yep.
So you guys had like the same, like almost the same comp. You had like Izanami Geb, and then you had a Soul Linear that's like a Guardian, and then you had Tiamat and like just a hyper carry assassin. Like it was like just solid comps they guys had, and it's honestly like maybe not for you. Like I feel like it's pretty big that you guys beat Paul's Hell. Like you don't have to.
Right.
But like when a lot of teams like they lose to Paul's Hell once and then they just ban it every game, and I think it's really bad. Like you end up going to round robin or players and you're just forced to auto ban a god. Like I think it's so bad. Do you guys like feel comfortable enough to like just like Hell is fine, we can play against it? I didn't really like draft the fuck the Hell. Like you had a Geb. Like Geb isn't like a counter to Hell or anything, so it was pretty clean. I would say.
I think that's one thing we said around Robin, where like these games really don't matter for like anything, in my opinion. So we were like, oh, there's so much. Let's just like let's just let things open. Like let's just play against things that we've been scared of, or teams have been scared of, and just see what happens, right? Like see if we're just in our own heads about things. And so yeah, I guess like to beat Paul's Hell was good, but I also just I never really take much from beating Titans in regular season. I feel like they're just a pure playoffs team. That team, like I don't think they'll ever be like that makeup of players. I don't think they'll ever be like a top 3, maybe not even top 4 sometimes, like in the regular season. But they're always going to play well at playoffs. So it's like we should probably just beat them, and then hopefully we can play well at playoffs against them.
Your thoughts on this set?
I guess I was also a little surprised you let Paul play Hell both games, but props to you on that. And then I mean, like you said, your backline putting in work. I think Netroid played really well this set.
Yeah, I think Netroid's kind of been having a pretty rough, rough last 3 months or something. I don't know. He just kind of, from the games I watched, I didn't watch all the sets, but I remember playoffs he looked pretty rough, and I'm not sure it was like his mood or stuff, but he definitely looked a lot better this week.
He was rough in playoffs. He was very mentally not there. Like I could tell he was not there mentally, and his comms were really bad at playoffs. He decided, like we spoke about it after, and we kind of said like, yeah, the dual lane kind of didn't show up in playoffs, and kind of partially as well that reflected to Ben as well a little bit. Whereas I think Harry's someone that always kind of does well in big games. It just and big man usually is typically fine as well. It's just those other three didn't have the greatest set against the Titans. And he's definitely gotten better, but he's a bit up and down. I think it's just like typical Smite player where they kind of like to take things easy, but in spurts he's definitely improving, and hopefully by the time it gets to Worlds he's like the player we want him to be. So because he's like skill-wise he's there. It's just mentally and like confidence and communication, like how good can he get?
Well, it's better now than at Worlds.
True. Yeah, it's got to be pretty disheartening though for every team basically to first ban Rama against you if you're Netroid, I imagine.
I mean, it works for a while because I don't know what else he's gonna play, but he's playing as an army now, and I'm sure he'll figure out something else. So.
The hunters always find one or two gods, and they just play them, and that's it. Hunters just like they always say like, oh my god, like I have to play Ula or Cupid every game, but it's like
I feel like Zap is good
it's
about
I feel like they always get stuck with these 2 or 3 picks, and like everyone just plays them.
I think there are some ADC players that end up defaulting to a couple of picks, but I feel like Panda Cat and Zap have like pretty varied picks no matter what the meta is, But maybe I'm misremembering.
I think Panda switches it up probably the most.
Yeah.
But
he'll just like AMC.
Yeah.
Randomly.
Who's playing AMC? I did want to get your guys' thoughts on the set that Cyclone's been played in ADC. I guess this is sort of a consequence of the assassin item buffs and things like that. Do you think we're going to see more of these sorts of things? Or
No.
No? No?
I don't think set ADC is gonna be good at all right now. Like I think he's like also probably one of the roughest matchup I would say is Nami, not really because of the god, just because she can go Tainted Steel and get away with it. So he actually like I don't think he sold him once.
Right.
And if you pick ADC and you don't really solo the other ADC, but it's probably just not worth it. Like he doesn't really like. I would rather have like a Susano ADC any day or Tsukiyomi. Like I don't even think Set's good late game at all. Like he really doesn't. I just don't know when you can do anything with the god as a hyper carry.
He's also not good against the meta supports right now. Like everyone's playing Geb, Khepri, stuff like that.
Right.
I think if you don't die to him early, then he's kind of useless. And Royd just played the laning phase really well. He was like really patient and didn't get greedy at all. But I also feel like Set, like at least when I coach Radiance, it felt like such a scrim pick and such a bait. We would always play it in scrims, and he would go like 9-0, and then we would play it against a good team in SPL, and he would die early, or we just never won on it. So, I think it's a bit of a scrim pick, and I mean, I think it was worth trying. I think he is a really good set player, and those items should just get buffed. So I think he was just like, oh, I'm gonna try it.
Right.
But I said off the game, I said, because they were talking about it, and I said, no, he will not play at game 2. Like, I guarantee you he will not play Set again game 2, and he just played he. So
Yeah. Are there maybe any other assassins that you think might sneak into the duo lane at all, or was this sort of a warning shot for maybe the rest of the league that this isn't worth it?
I mean, I think he definitely could play them like and be fine in lane, but it's more about like are they good enough? Like, is it worth it late game to not have an assassin? Not have a hunter. I mean, like in some comps. I mean, I don't know. Maybe like, but I just don't think I don't see like any reason for it right now, unless there's an assassin that like stomps lane so hard that he can like carry into the late game. Like, because with Boomba Spear you can just do objectives. Like, I don't think you actually need hunters anymore for like FG DPS like as much as you used to.
Right.
With the Boomba Spear being pretty good, but still, I don't see a reason to not have a hunter who can just kill tanks and like consistent DPS. So, but maybe someone will just like become an assassin player and just ruin every hunter's fun, and then they'll be like, I can't play against this, so they'll just start playing it, and it kind of snowballs like that.
Yeah. That is a bit of a good segue. I did want to maybe get your thoughts on Boomba Spear in specific. You know, like we've seen ADCs pick this up, junglers pick it up. I mean, sometimes we even see those have been the main roles that pick it up, I think, especially for the objective damage. Do you expect to see hunters to keep on picking up Boomba Spear where it's viable, or is it only viable on certain hunters, or you think anybody can get away with it? Or what are your thoughts on Boomba Spear? Does it feel maybe overpowered to you guys in any respect, or you know, how's this item feel to you guys?
I mean, I think it's really good, but I don't know if it's like OP because at the end, like I mean, Bumba's hammer is also like such a good item, right? Like
Right.
Bumba Spear is good. Like I think all of the starters are really good, and like I don't know, like if you are buying Bumba's in ADC, you are losing Hunter's Cal stuff, which is like a lot of stats that you're getting,
Mhm.
and you're losing like the late game attack speed and stuff. So I think that some hunters can buy it and it's fine. You're giving up some stuff for it, but I mean, people will build it now. Like I'm 100% sure that like you'll see a lot of hunters building Bumba Spear. If you're playing mid ADC, I'm pretty sure you'll see Bumbas to try and get Bumba Spear just because it's kind of buffed and you want to play it. But I don't actually know if it's like that good that it would be better than having like the early game stats from the other starters. But I don't know. Having that much FG DPS is like a dream, you know. So
Right.
I'm not sure. Like I personally haven't like gotten that far in a scrim to see a hunter hitting FG with Bumba Spear. So I don't know myself. Every rank game and every scrim ends too quickly for me to actually see how fast they die. But I would say it's probably OP for FG. Like, but I haven't seen it personally. But the numbers are like crazy.
Yeah, I think when hunters have switched to like ability damage and they're not going attack speed, like Bomba Spear really helps with objectives and just like towers, phoenixes, things like that. So yeah, I think that's kind of a consequence.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know whether it's like OP or not. I think it'll probably get tweaked in some way, along with like some the maces and all the things that got over buffed. But
Yeah, there's just
it's
the
like, I
maces.
guess.
There's just like you just look at like the assassin builds. They just have like 40 more power, and they're like the Jotuns just cost less.
Yeah.
And the hard seeker passive, like Harris just went crazy.
Yeah, you're able
But
to get Jotuns
you
online
get
so quick.
you got Jotuns like level 5.
Yeah.
All your cooldowns are like just shorter. I mean, honestly, like that's like the biggest thing I would say Jotuns, but I actually wouldn't mind if they keep the Jotuns and then like nerf all the other stuff that makes them just scale so much better, like all the other buffs they got. But I mean, Jotuns is the biggest one though. To be fair.
Yeah,
Jotuns
I agree.
and Bimbas.
I think it is nice to see there's like I think it's good for the game for these junglers to be played. Like that's how the game should be. Like I don't think it's exciting to see like a Cyrus and Erlang and Gilgamesh running around every game. But I mean, I think just like what Cherry said, just tweak the other things. Like I don't think junglers being strong early is bad. Like I think that's how the game should be. And then but then they should fall off late. They shouldn't like not like completely, but just enough so that they're not absolutely just earning mages, you know, or earning hunters.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off
I
this
agree.
sort of Boomba Spear discussion as well, we sort of saw, I think, the most variety we've seen in jungle picks this past week than we have maybe since, I guess, the start of this season. It kind of feels like. I think Phase 2 was really dominated, like you said, by the Osiris's, the Gilgameshes, the Erlangs, those sorts of jungle picks. Do you expect to see more variety in the jungle now, especially now that assassins are sort of back on the menu here?
100%. Yeah, I think when you get to like hyper carries and stuff, like that you don't really want to get countered. Like every jungler is going to be bottom throwing, and everyone's going to be trying to get like the best matchup possible into the other jungler and into their carries. So and then that's where the right is going to come in. I think like Combat's is picked and Daji's good, or Relix is good. Like Bastet's picked, and you know have some counters there. Like Susano's picked, you have that. Like I think everyone, I think all the assassins are obviously not all of them. Some of them still suck. You know, like Arachne, Surket, Naja, I think they're like the worst right now. I think gods like Baka and Kali just aren't good when you're getting one shot anyways. You can't really auto attack anyone.
Right.
Like those don't really get changed. But anyone that just built the mace tree, they got buffed and then you kind of just counter each other. Like Tsukiyomi, Ravana, Pele, Nemesis, you know, Susano, Bats, Dashi. Like all these guys just got better. So I think you just counter picking now as jungler. Like I think it's pretty important that junglers bottom to every game. to try and give them the best like game possible because they impact the game a lot right now.
Says the jungler.
I mean, like junglers have suffered a little bit this year. Like they have just played only Gilgamesh, Osiris, even Erlang, not even that much. He kind of got in like at the end of like at the phase 2 playoffs, I would say, and at the beginning, like he didn't really get played that much.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
was mainly just Osiris, Gilgamesh, and you don't really kill anyone. You kind of just run around like an idiot.
I mean, I think people just playing Erlang, they're like, okay, what can I play to not get absolutely owned by this Osiris or this Gilgamesh? And like, okay, I guess I can just play Erlang and like not be useless.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the only thing that's missing now is after these junglers get nerfed, like the items, they just buff Naja and Circuit, and everything is good.
Everything is good.
Yeah.
Last
Yeah, I
thing.
think
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I think there will continue to be variance in jungle picks, especially like you got to think that the patch was pretty recent, and teams are just gonna continue to scrim and continue to test assassins. So yeah, inevitably there's just gonna be more picks.
That's kind of what happened with us against Titans. We got the like last pick, and Ben like suggested a pick, and I think it was like Bastet or something. He's like maybe, and then he's like, oh, it's bad into R2, and then he just goes, oh, give me Susanna, and I was like, oh, so you're not worried about the R2 now? And like I think he said that's the first time he's ever played Susanna in SPL, and maybe Loki too. So I don't know. He was just whipping out picks that we had not touched in scrims either, and I think that's just how it's gonna be.
Sure.
Maybe specifically for him, I think someone like Sam will like know exactly what he wants to play before anyone else. But like Cardi said, I think it's you'll see adjustments over the next week or two for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I think they'll end up being like they'll still end up being a meta in jungle, right? They'll still end up being like the best assassin. Like maybe Loki will just like start getting banned because he's the best or whatever, something like that. But I mean, there's like at the end there'll still be like a lot of variety because you're trying to counter pick most of the time.
Last thing I wanted to bring up about this patch and maybe phase 3 in general is I think we've sort of seen a split between some supports in picking up Bracer versus not. I don't think we've really seen Genetics pick up Bracer too many times, Biggie, but we've seen, I think Inbound, PBM, some of the other sports in the league have really favored this Bracer. What is your sort of thoughts on this on Bracer, whether you think it's a good item worth having? It's an extra ward, an extra sentry, basically. Is that something that you guys value, or are there some downsides that that it's not really as team fighty as some of the other team fight relics, right? So what are your thoughts on Bracer, especially in the support role?
Me, I guess I think all those relics are kind of like in a good place right now. I feel like you can build a lot of different relics in support. Like you can go Blink, Sprint, Shell, Bracer, Frenzy. Like there's just so many like that are decent, like in the right situations. I don't know. I mean, I can only really go off like what Sam says a lot of time, and he thinks it's like fine, but not every game. Like he doesn't think it's OP. He's just like, yeah, sometimes it's good, sometimes I don't like it. So maybe like Cherry or Cardi would have like a different opinion to that though.
I don't know. Like whenever I see it in my games, it's like I don't know. Like I just think the other relics are so good that Bracer isn't as good. I mean, it's still gonna be fine. It's just like whenever I see the aura on the ground, I'm not like I really want to go into that. I mean, it's like it's kind of just like whatever. I just feel like all the other relics are so good. I mean, you can build it and try to like use it a bit earlier as well and stuff, but. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can't really you don't really want to rush a Frenzy, but maybe you can actually build that Bracer for some.
Yeah, I mean,
in the early game.
With supports, like they're getting to 12 like last out of everyone, so the game's kind of developed at that point. So they're kind of picking a relic like situationally. Like a lot of the time, supports aren't going into a game knowing what 2 relics they're gonna buy. So if the game's changing in a way that we might need a shell here, or I'm gonna buy Blink if I didn't have Blink already, etc. Like you're giving up a lot by buying Bracer. Not saying Bracer's bad, but there's just a lot of really good support relics.
Any other?
Like I actually think Sprint is really underbought, especially with the buff as well now. I think every support is like 20% of movement speed doesn't look like that much, but it really is. Like I feel like in a fight, like whenever I'm a jungler and someone gets Sprint when I go in, it really feels way harder to kill them. Like if you don't have like an errand right, they just like you actually can't get to them.
Right,
It's the same whenever I'm like if I'm about to engage and I get sprinted, that's like a pretty big deal. But every support I played with doesn't feel the same way. They're like, this feels useless for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand why. Like for them, it doesn't really do much.
Yeah, because you just die anyway.
Yeah, but then also Frenzy got buffed. Also Horrific had to get buffed because he can't buff Sprint without buffing Horrific, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then like Frenzy got buffed as well, like more FG DPS on some comps, but which is like the only reason is the Frenzy is actually not necessary at all right now because junglers literally one shot objectives anyways.
Yeah.
Like they're full damage and have Brimba Spear and they're full pen. So like objectives, like they actually probably do more DPS than a Hunter right now, unless this Hunter is full crit. So Frenzy is like probably not going to be built that much for now because you don't really need it, honestly.
This week, I was able to sit down with Ronngyu, the support for the Atlantis Leviathans, to talk a little bit about Phase 1 and Phase 2, and look forward to Worlds as well. Check it out. Hey guys, I'm here with Ronngyu, the support for the Atlantis Leviathans, to talk a little bit about Phase 2, Phase 3, and maybe look forward to Worlds a little bit as well. So, of course, I really want to talk to you about, how Zap has been in the duo lane, because I know duo lanes are sort of, pretty close-knit. You have to communicate very well with your ADC, I imagine, and the support, especially now, people are able to make some aggressive plays, and, I know you guys like doing that. How has Zap been sort of getting into the duo lane, especially with you?
It's been well. I feel like, for example, when we first start playing without in comms, because it was a secret that we were about to be a dual lane,
Mhm.
and in ranked, I feel like we just have like the connection. Like he has the knowledge. I'm pretty new to the league still, but I feel like I'm in a very good level.
Mhm.
So it just fits, right? Because Sama has a lot of knowledge of the game, and I'm kind of new in this like competitive thing, and he just helps me. He'll just tell me something that I don't know, or something we just farm. It's okay, like in this meta, you just farm. You don't do anything. You just get invaded by mid laners or junglers. So you just hope to not to die to them. But yeah, it's been pretty well. I like Salmon as dueling.
Yeah, has he, a lot of people have talked about him, helping in terms of maybe like late game shot calling sometimes. Are there other phases in the game where he helps out? Does he also maybe just give you guys some sort of confidence and swagger that like, it doesn't matter how wrong things go in the game, Zap's always got your back and things like that? Is that part of it as well?
Yeah, and scrims happens a lot where I don't know, we went to F6 or something, and Salmon is like, no, F6-7, guys, like we got this. Like this is good, like scrims for tournaments where you sometimes have to play behind or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he's right, but sometimes you just need that person to hype you up. Also, when I don't know, we all die and Salmon is alive, and we're like, fuck. And then Salmon is just like, okay, guys, what you guys did there was wrong, and he like explains or anything. And it's cool to have a person like Salman in the team.
Sure, sure. The sort of add-on effect here of Zap coming in is that Yarkor moved back into the solo lane. I think sort of early on in that switch, we saw Yarkor default to a lot of his old solo laners. I think he was playing like Kukulin a lot, and maybe he was one of the guys who was playing King Arthur when a lot of other solo laners weren't really touching it. Do you feel like Yarkor has maybe like found his footing again in the solo lane?
Yeah, I feel like he keeps like trying stuff, which is not bad. He's trying to create his own meta. I think he
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
create. I think he was the one that played audio,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that's good because like in weekly matches you can just try out something.
Sure.
So in big tournaments, you're just like, wait, why is this guy playing this or that? Is that what we lacked last year? I think like everyone was expecting what we're gonna pick, and in this playoff, I feel like we showed up. Like we had more picks or like more strategies. Also, Sapman in the team helps a lot in tourneys. He has
Mm-hmm.
a lot of knowledge. He's like incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, I mean, perfect sort of segue for me is, I wanted to talk about the Phase 2 playoffs a little bit um, more. And, it was great to see you guys finally beat the Bolts, or sort of the old Renegades roster, I guess, in
Mhm.
playoffs. You guys said the curse is broken. Was that actually something that was weighing on you mentally? I think you guys say that I think mostly in jest, but like, was there some part of it that was now it's sort of a weight off your shoulders a little bit?
I think it was more like personal. It's like these guys are just beating us every time.
Hmm.
It's like, I mean, we could have won a lot of times we play them. Like everyone says that, right? But I don't know. It's just like you can't win, but you just don't do it, and
Hmm.
it's like frustrating. But then I think time gives us the chance.
Yeah, unfortunately, you guys still made it to the finals, but sort of the Titans, sort of caught fire, I guess, in the Phase 2 playoffs. Is that something to learn from? Do you think there were what were sort of the main takeaways that you guys had from making it all the way to the finals and still understanding that there is some more of the mountain to climb?
Yeah, playing from home. I mean, we just play in a studio, hype. Then we woke up and we had to play in our houses.
Mm,
It was kind of, because Titans play all the games in their houses,
sure, sure.
and we play in the studio and then go to home. Which I'm not like saying we lost because of that, but the momentum and all the stuff. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
it matters.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think we know what we did, and yeah, I think we learned from that. I think we know how to be Titans now.
Sure. Sure. So I do want to talk a little bit about Phase 3. Now there's been a pretty big buff. A lot of jungler items have sort of just gotten stronger. There's more power for these assassins. A lot more assassins are being played in the jungle. No more Osiris, thank God. I think. How has this sort of new meta with this change and what's happening in the jungle affected you in the support role? Is there, has there been a change in what gods you think are more viable, or has that changed the way that you maybe want to play at all, or is it just try to protect people, peel, and do that just based on what support you pick?
Well, I feel like Capri was in the meta kind of,
Mm-hmm.
but now I think it's stronger
Mm-hmm.
because junglers are just gonna one shot you, and because they can one shot you, you can also get one shot because you're going full damage, so you're squishy. So I think Capri, Gap, maybe Sylvanus for the protections too, and a lot of auras you can get on him
Yeah. Yeah.
are are coming back to the meta maybe. But
Mm.
yeah, I feel like April Gap and Sylvanos are pretty strong picks right now.
Yeah, I was talking with Biggie and Cardiac on the and even Cherry on the show this week, and they're saying that Geb is pretty OP, especially with a bunch of extra damage. Biggie was
Oh,
talking about how I think genetics ulted and then two'd and rolled out, and the two people in the duo lane were both at 50%. So that's pretty great, right?
yeah, I heard my teammates complaining like, "Yo, this Gap is one shotting me, guys. Like, let's just do something about this, please."
We haven't really seen you play too much Geb. Is that something that you're working on here?
Maybe. Who knows?
Another thing that sort of changed with this patch is there have been some changes to the support items. They tried to make War Flag a little more viable and things like that. Do you think there's anything good with the War Flag or other warrior supports? I think we've seen some people try out Horus and things like that. Are we going to see any of those coming up?
Um, it's hard because like I feel like Horus it has to be the last pick or something because it
Hmm.
has horrible matchups
Sure.
against in this meta. It's like if you're against an Ares, you're literally useless. You're going against a Gap, you're useless. You're against Sylvanus, you're useless. I don't know. He has a lot of bad matchups that I think is what he's not in the meta.
Hmm.
But I feel like his level 1 and 2 in lane is probably pretty strong. It's like he can kill someone by himself, I think. But yeah, I feel like maybe Horus can be viable, just like a flex pick, maybe. Just like,
Hmm.
they ban everything, what's on the table, Horus.
Sure. Sure. The other thing that I've been noticing recently is there are some supports that really like the new bracer, and there are some supports that just don't ever seem to pick it up and think that some of the team fight relics are a bit more impactful. I just wanted to sort of maybe get your take on that. How do you feel this new bracer is? Do you sort of value the fact that it becomes a sentry board in when you upgrade it and things like that, or do you feel like some of the team fight relics, like horrific and sprint, have gotten buffed recently too? Are those still things that you want to have?
Yeah, I feel like before they buff some relics, Bracer was pretty OP because it was like a frenzy with a sprint.
Hmm.
At the same time, if you use it well.
Yeah.
But now that they have buff some relics like frenzy, horrific, shell, sprint, I think, and I don't remember others, but yeah, they have buffed some of them. So I feel like Bracer is still okay. I think you never miss with Bracer, but for
Uh-huh.
example, with Link you can miss because like sometimes you just don't have to blink, or like with Shell, or like with Horrific. I think Bracer is like a pretty easy option if you just don't know what to build. It's like just build Bracer. It's gonna be great in any scenario.
Sure. Sure. Last thing about this new meta, we've sort of seen sort of right out the gates, everyone is building Boomba Spear. We see it on a bunch of ADC builds now. All the junglers seem to be sort of leaning towards Boomba Spear and being able to crush objectives pretty fast. This always seems to sort of happen, right? Everyone's like, what's the fastest way to kill objectives? And that sort of seems to become the meta. Are you a fan of Boomba Spear at all? Or, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a point where we're gonna see 4 or 3 Boomba Spears in the game, and I hope they nerf that as they did with my Benevolence. I was happy with Benevolence before, and this guy just start building it.
Yeah.
Hate him, but yeah, I feel like Boomba Spear is very viable. I think like pretty much in any role you can do it,
Mhm.
except in supports. Maybe I don't know. I haven't tried in supports, but I feel like in every role apart from support, I think you can buy it.
Yeah, I mean, it especially seems viable if you have some build path where you can like skip the starter. Like I feel like
Yeah.
mid and solo it fits in easy because you can just skip the starter and get it, level 20 or whatever when you're full build and ready to go, get it as a sixth item, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like you're right. It's probably only a matter of time before we see it in some of these other roles. Hopefully,
Yes.
hopefully it's. I think a lot of people are thinking that Hyres is probably gonna tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to move on maybe to talking about worlds. I've talked a lot with, and this is something a lot of the J Dragons have said, and some other players have said in the past, is they are really concerned about making sure they are playing their best when it matters the most, and basically that means like peaking at the right time. And so as we're sort of going into phase 3, is there anything special that you guys are doing maybe to, get to that sort of top place right as you're getting into worlds?
Well, right now we're pretty much just screaming, trying to see what's good, beating teams, and maybe for words we're gonna prepare something more spicy, or like more picks, or like I don't know, probably just listen what someone says, basically.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm all out of questions here, Ronngyu. So now is the spicy part of the interview where I ask who is inting in your scrims, and
Oh,
who you're trying to call out. And then on the flip side of that, maybe who you're trying to shout out. Anyone who's been supporting you recently a lot, and of course, if there's anything you want to say to the league or about Smite, I want to give you guys a chance to say your mind. So, Ronngyu, of course, the floor is yours.
okay. Shout out to someone for inting every scream, so I'm making them fun.
Hey, it's called tactical feeding, okay, Ronngyu?
Yeah. Shout outs to new words. We didn't have scream today for
Yeah.
that. um, Shout outs to I don't know, all the LATAM speakers that always are supporting us. Also the non LATAM speakers. I don't know, they are great people. Like I see them in Paneram chat, which is the one that he's most streaming, or
Mhm.
like in Sabma. Sometimes they're there because I don't stream that often. But I like to be in my teammates' streams a lot, and they're really supportive. And yeah, I hope they keep supporting us.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to support these guys, you gotta get some merch.
Oh yeah,
Shop.smitebroleague.com. Be sure to rep for your favorite teams, of course. And
exactly.
support your favorite players, and of course, you can buy the SPL merch and support this league as well too. Ronngyu, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It was a pretty great, fun conversation we had, so appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's time to make our pick for week 3 of phase 3. Starting with the Tartarus Titans versus the Valhalla Valkyries. Cardiac, why don't you start us off here? Who you got in this one?
I'm gonna make a bold prediction that the Valkyries will win a set by the end of the year, but it's not gonna be this set.
Okay.
The Titans are gonna 2-0.
Titans 2-0. Biggie, how about you? Who you got in this one?
Yeah, I think Titans will tour. I think they still have a good enough grip of the meta despite losing to us, and they did look really strong in the early games. So I think they'll just beat Valkyries pretty easily.
Jerry, you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think Valks can win a set, but I just don't think Titans is a team that will like drop games to lower teams.
Sure.
I could actually think Valks have a better chance being like Dragons or Leviathans than they do Titans, because I just don't think Titans will drop games to like worse teams than them.
2-0 Titans for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Biggie, let's start with you for the next set here of the week. The Olympus Bolts versus the Camelot Kings. I imagine you go in 2-0 for the Kings here?
I mean, I'm not that biased. I mean, I don't really know. I think Bolts didn't look that great last week. We won, but I don't think we looked that good either. I think it would be a good set. I think we'll win 2-1. But I think a lot of it just depends on the jungle matchup, right? Like, I think Lasper probably has a bit more experience on this specific stronger junglers now. But and also I think it's hard for us to gauge what they're gonna play a bit more, because they did kind of pick random stuff, at least in the first set. So I think it should be. Hopefully, it's a good set.
Yeah. Jerry, how about you? Who you got in this one? Olympus Bolts versus Camelot Kings.
I think I'm actually gonna go Kings 2-0. Even though Bolts won against Valkyries, I don't think they actually look that good. Like when I really watch the games and see what they're doing, maybe it was like a bit of like not like disrespect, but like complacency or whatever. I mean, I think this set will show a lot about the Bolts, because they haven't really looked good so far this phase. And if they lose, I think it might be really bad for the mental, because they were doing really well last phase. They ended up losing at the tournament, and if they can't really pick themselves back up, it could kind of spiral downhill. I don't know. I don't really know how the team is. I don't think they will be like that bad, but they kind of want to probably start getting some like decent wins, and I think it does really depend on like jungle. I think Ven and Big Man will play fine. I think Jake kind of been like meh this phase so far. Like he looked okay on the emoji, but like I think he hasn't really found his goods. He's not really like a Kepri Gep player, right? And I kind of think that's the meta right now. It's actually the Raffer meta.
Yeah, it is.
Like Kepri Gep every game, if you play them. So I don't think Haddox is a Guardian player as much as he plays them. Like I really don't. I think he's a lot better on the Warriors. So I don't really think it's like their meta as much. I think Laspa was like popping off on, like he was so good with like the Warriors and Suket, and I think they're not good right now. It's not like Laspa can't play the Assassins, but it's a big adjustment that he has to make. So I think it's kind of up to him how good they look.
Sure.
But I'm gonna go Kings too.
Cardiac, how are you feeling about this set?
Well, apparently the Bolts have been stomping Kings in scrims.
Oh.
That means they lose for sure.
There's, but I don't think scrims really matter. I think Bolts 2-1, but I'd be happy to see the Kings prove me wrong. Maybe it's me going off of previous splits where the Bolts have been so strong that I struggle to see them losing much, but I'm gonna go Bolts 2-1.
Sure. Jerry, let's start with you on the third set here of the week. The Olympus Bolts versus the Atlantis Leviathans. This has been sort of a bit of a rivalry here between the Sanguine Boys and this Bolts/Renegades team for a couple years now. Who you got in this one?
It's kind of hard to just go 0-2 for Bolts this week. So, like, I don't know if I was gonna choose Leviathans, but No, I'll just choose Leviathans. Like, let's just ignore that I chose Kings the day before as well. I mean, I don't know. I think Bolts have usually looked better against Leviathans until the last phase, right? When
Right.
like the last playoffs where Leviathans finally beat them in an actual like important game. Because even last year, I don't think they have.
Mhm.
So maybe they broke the curse. You know,
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Yeah, the curse has been broken. But I don't know. I think the matchup between these teams is actually pretty close. Like I think they play pretty like not similarly, but I think it's like the very opposite. That when they play each other, it kind of ends up being the same game.
Mm.
Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like both kind of want to play aggressive and like make plays around the map. But I feel like when they played Leviathans, even like in regular games, this phase kind of been pretty chill.
Mm.
So I think it's just gonna be a close game. I'm gonna go 2-1 Leviathans though.
Cardiac, who you got in this one? Olympus Bolts versus Atlantis Leviathans.
I think similar to Cherry, I'm gonna go 2-1 Leviathans. This is always a really interesting match. And now that Zap's on the Leviathans, you kind of get the Zap Bara, matchup that everyone loves.
Yeah.
I think the supports will have a big impact in this game. Whatever support probably plays better will dictate the pace. Maybe that's different with how junglers have been buffed, but I feel like supports, especially on these teams, can really dictate a game. So I'm gonna go 2-1 Leviathans.
Sure. Biggie, how about you?
I think the exact same. I think 2-1 Leviathans. I think based on form, there's no way you can pick Bolts. Leviathans just look like the best team in the league right now, and Bolts have not looked that good, like Cherry said. So there's like there's no justification to pick Bolts, but I think they will bounce back a bit and take a game at least and make it a good set. Because I think they were just in their own heads with their picks and bans last week, and I think they will adjust things this week and be a lot better.
All right, Cardiac. Let's start with you here on the next set of the week. The Jade Dragons versus the Solar Scarabs. Who you got in this one?
There's got to be an upset somewhere, right?
Yeah, there kind of has to be, right?
2-0 Scarabs.
Hey, 2-0 Scarabs from Cardiac. Right.
I feel like the Dragons, they have those letdown weeks sometimes.
They do, yeah.
And I don't know, just feeling 2-0 Scarabs.
Sure. Biggie, you feeling the Scarabs love here as well, or?
No, not as heavily. I think Dragons understand the meta. I think it's like a really strong meta for Sam. I think it's also a strong meta for Scream, but I just think dual lane specifically, I think the Dragons are just a lot stronger. And they I think they also contest a lot of picks. Like they will contest the ul pick heavily. So I think there's no way Stuart gets it, and I think that makes him a lot weaker in the matchup. I think maybe like it's hard to say. Like I want to say like Scabs will win a game, but I think based on the way they played against the Warriors, I think Dragons will just 2-0 them.
Jerry, finish us off here. Jade Dragons versus Solar Scarabs. Who you got?
I think maybe I'll go with the Dragons 2-1. Let's say Scarabs get a win. I think it really depends on like. I think Scream will just do fine, but I think it's probably up to Bronic and Inbound. I think ADC is going to be like they'll get their picks and do whatever. But I think like if mid support can kind of play well together, I think they can do some stuff because I think Scream will do well. But at the end of the day, you need to kind of make sure the jungler doesn't kill your carries for free. And I think if like Bronic has like a comfortable god he can play on and doesn't like get one shot by Sam every fight. I mean, assuming they get to late game, I get to like 20 minutes. I think they have a shot. I think if you give like Bronic Raijin, I think I could see Scarabs like getting a good win if they get like a good core like the Sylvanas Raijin kind of thing they had going. If they find something similar and play well with it, I could see them actually winning. Yeah.
2-1 Dragons for you?
Yeah. I just think for Scarabs, it's important. It's important when you're losing to not have like chaotic picks.
Right.
Like I don't think you want to just have random picks like who kind of need to do one on their own.
Sure. All right, Biggie, let's start with you for the next set of the week, the Solar Scarabs versus the Valhalla Valkyries.
I think Scarabs will win 2-0. I mean, there's potential for an upset for sure. Like if Valkyries are going to win any set, I think right now, while they're not in NA. I think
Mhm.
it's probably going to be Scarabs, but
Right.
I think I still think Scarabs. Like, I'm going to back the Scarabs to maybe like get back on the build some momentum against the Valkyries and then see what they can do for the rest of the split. So
Sure.
I think 2-0, but I think there's potential for like a 2-1 Scarabs win still.
Yeah. Cherry, how about you? Scarabs versus Valkyries.
I'm gonna actually go Valks 2-0. I'm gonna go all in on the Valks. I feel like I think from their perspective, right, this has to be the set they're focused on the most, and I feel
Mhm.
like that's the set they should be the most tryhard for.
Mhm.
Like focusing, like really preparing picks and stuff. Like they shouldn't even care about the Titans game. Like it should be like something to prove to themselves. You know
Right.
that they're not the worst team in SPL, like everyone says.
Sure.
Um,
Well, and it is Rapper's
I
meta,
hope so,
right?
because I think this is Johnny's meta. Like he's also the kind of player like Sam, who like he is not a good Gilgamesh Osiris player. Like, I actually think like this team is really up to Rapper. Like, if he like actually, I think they do like a leader really badly, and if Rapper like kind of goes full tryhard mode, because I played with Rapper and like he rarely gets there, but if he does, I actually think they actually win this pretty confidently, I would say.
Sure.
But you know, is that gonna happen? We'll see. If they really want to win, like if they have like a talk, like let's go full tryhard and scrims as well, because this team there's no way, because we've scrimmed them, there's no way they do not tryhard scrims.
Mhm.
So if they focus on scrims and focus on practice and kind of have a plan for scarabs, I could see them winning if they like shut down scream. So I also think it's like depends, because if scarabs lose, you know, momentum and morale and stuff, that definitely plays a role.
Sure. Sure. And as you said, Cherry, it is a Rapper meta, with Gavin Kepri sort of dominating
Yeah,
the support role. So,
like give Rafu, Gabo Caprian, give Johnny a hyper carry.
yeah.
And you know, as long as they're not trolling playing Thoth in mid, I think they're gonna do great.
Cardiac, do you think the Valks have a chance here in this set?
Well, the last set win the Valks had was against the Scarabs,
It's true.
but no, I don't think they have a chance here. I think it's going to be a 2-0 in favor of the Scarabs.
All right,
I'm a
last
believer.
set of week 3 here. Cherry, let's start with you on this one. The Camelot Kings versus the Oni Warriors. Who do you think's gonna win?
I'll go with Kings 2-1. I would love if Warriors win, honestly, just because I'm an Oni homie, you know.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I think I think Kings just kind of play like a solid game,
Mhm.
and if they're kind of ready for Dodge's picks, because I actually think. I mean, obviously Nika is going to do Nika things, but I think like if Dodge doesn't play well, I don't think Warriors will ever win. Like even if he's having like a quiet game, like I think he always needs to be doing well for like the comms and stuff like that. Because he was kind of useful for when I played with him.
Mhm.
But I think just Kings kind of play too solidly for Warriors to actually win the set. Like even if Kings fuck up one game, I think they reset, they kind of figure out what the problem is and just kind of get rid of it.
Right.
And yeah, I think on right now, I think only Warriors probably just don't win, but maybe on Freds and NA things will be different.
Cardiac, how about you? How do you feel about this set?
Yeah, this is a pretty good one to end the week. I think it will be 2-0 Kings, but they're not going to be like stomps. I feel like there'll be pretty close games. But in the end, I think the Kings just pull it off. Yeah, they're just kind of a solid team, and a lot of times it feels like the Warriors kind of like just that one step behind some teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to say that the Warriors can't take a game off or win this set, but I just have a feeling that they're going to be close games, but the Kings will come out on top.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine you're rooting for the Kings here on this one.
Yeah, I think we should win tour. I feel like we have a pretty heavy jungle diff just because Fred's on high ping and trying to play some of these different like on the Warriors you could kind of get away with it a little bit more, I feel like, but on these gods like Susanna and stuff where you need a bit higher mechanics, it's going to be harder for Fred like to play those on higher ping, and Ben's obviously been on normal ping, and so I think
Yeah.
we'll diff them a bit there. I think for us it'll come down to like jungle support kind of difference, like how well we can run the early game. I think we'll win 2-0. I think if we do lose a game, it'll probably be because we throw an early game super hard again. I couldn't imagine us.
usual.
Yeah, the usual. And I couldn't imagine us kind of getting to late game and losing to them.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's like actually thinking about it again. Like, it's gonna be so hard for Dordis to ever have like a good Aegis. Like, he's gonna get one shot by assassins, and it's like the ping diff might be huge there.
Yeah.
All right,
It's
well,
like big man and Fred are both battling out on high pings. So
yeah. Well, that wraps up week 3 of phase 3. Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown. Be sure to catch us every week before the SPL on twitch.tv/SmiteGame. If you want to catch past episodes or extended cuts of the SPL Rundown, be sure to check out our YouTube. Just search APM Productions on YouTube. Finally, if there are any guests that you want to see on the SPL Rundown, be sure to message me on Twitter at APM2 or at APM Productions. And of course, I want to thank my wonderful guests here and give them a chance to shout out their socials and where you can find them on the internet. Cardiac, why don't you start us off here?
Yeah, thanks for having me, APM. You can just follow me at Twitter at cardiac_. I was doing some team of the week stuff earlier on in the year, kind of have stopped that, but maybe as playoffs come around, I'll bring it back.
Biggy?
Yeah, bring it back. It was fun. I really wish Hyres would actually like do stuff like that more.
Yeah, I thought it was a decent idea.
Biggy, you want to shout yourself out?
No, I'm fine.
At Biggy_Cole on Twitter.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Terry, last but not least, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, or Twitter at the Cherryo. Might make some content on YouTube from time to time when I feel like it.
Yeah. Also, do want to shout out shop.smiteproleague.com. Be sure to pick up some merch to support your favorite Smite teams or just the SPL in general. You know, we love to see our boys getting paid, so be sure to support them if you can. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.